This episode of Around the Oval is brought to you by Todd Pennington with Revolution Mortgage. Hey, Ohio State fans, Alex Gleitman here, back with another edition of Around the Oval, brought to you by Todd Pennington with Revolution Mortgage. Yes, we are in the middle of the craziest recruiting month in Ohio State history. And so you think I'm going to talk about recruiting on the show. We're doing plenty of that on BuckEyeScoop.com right now. We're going to take a little bit of a different route on the show this week, and we're going to welcome in a new old friend of Ohio State football in Zach Swartz, who was the director of creative media and post-production, basically all the awesome video stuff that you saw Ohio State come out with, the theatrical trailers before games, all the awesome recruiting video content, player highlights, things like that. He was the guy, or his team was responsible for putting all that out over the last, 4, 5, 6 years, something like that. So we're fortunate enough to have Zach, who recently left the program for a new opportunity, which I'll talk to you about in just a minute, with us tonight to kind of share his experience with Ohio State football and give you a peek behind the curtain of what it was like to be a part of the creative team, the recruiting team at Ohio State. Zach, pleasure to have you on. Thanks for joining the show. How's everything going?
It's good. Thanks for having me on here. It's I've only been gone officially from the program for a few weeks now, and it after going through 5 years of being in it all day every day, that feels like a lifetime. So it's excited to go back and reflect a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And before we go ahead and do that, let's tell everyone. I saw on social media you kind of changed things over, but tell everyone who's listening or watching what you're doing now, what company you're at, what's your new role?
So my new role is I am the senior producer, the senior producer for WME Sports, which is an arm of Endeavor, which is a pretty gigantic organization that spans a lot of different arms. William and Morris is the agency, and so overall the agency represents a ton of clients across all entertainment and sports. And really, but my job on the sports side is kind of threefold. So we obviously have our own social media platform. So trying to build the brand of WME Sports up, and really that's kind of where the crossover comes. Very similar to what I did at Ohio State. We're obviously trying to build I was trying to build the Ohio State football brand, but also promote the student athletes that were part of Ohio State's program. That's really what a major part of what I'm doing now. So building the WME Sports brand, as well as promoting those clients that we have across Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, golf, tennis, and then some occasional clients. We have Christian Pulisic, who plays for Chelsea, overseas. So kind of all across the board, all different sports. And then the second arm is again, kind of a crossover from Ohio State, trying to help recruit new clients as we move forward in all those sports, partially by promoting our current people, but also working with our agents, just like I used to work with coaches, working with our agents to try to promote the good parts of what WME Sports can provide and what those agents can provide to future clients. And then the third part, we actually have properties clients. So there are professional teams that are our clients, and our creative team provides kind of consultations, advice, as well as physical support as well. If they need me to help shoot or produce something, that's kind of what we're there for as well. So those are my three focuses here in my new role.
Well, that's really cool. I just want to say congratulations. I thought you did great work at Ohio State. When you literally put chills on, down people's back or on their arms or whatever. I mean, that's what you're going for. And that's really cool. So just congratulations on the new gig. That sounds like an awesome role. And before we get into kind of the why you left Ohio State for your new role, let's take a step back. And I guess first, before we even get to Ohio State, you went to college like any one of me or anyone listening here. And I don't know if this is something you always wanted to do, but would love to hear a little bit about kind of your journey to Ohio State. If this is something you always wanted to do, great. We'd love to hear that. But a lot of people also find kind of their interests while they're in college or doing something else? Like, tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got into all of this.
Yep. So I always start when I was a kid. Me and my brother would play video games. Madden and NCAA football and um, baseball and all that stuff. And then I would immediately leave the console and go to our computer, and I'd write like a game recap. I had a fake newspaper, and so I always enjoyed writing. I always grew up loving to read. So when it kind of came time to choose a college, I kind of chose journalism. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but journalism was the route that I wanted to pursue. So I looked around the country and ended up at Ohio University, which has a great journalism program just down the road here from Columbus. It was close to home as well, but far enough away that I got to get the college experience. So I went there as a journalism major and actually minored in Spanish, but then also you had to choose a specialization. And so my specialization was in sport management. They also happen to have a really good sport management program there down in Athens. So I was able to meet some people there and just kind of get a feel. I always grew up a sports fan, interested in sports. And so kind of that journalism, sport management connection started. I did some, unpaid internships and some volunteer stuff. I did the Lily World Series for one summer out there. I interned and wrote articles for the Southern Ohio Copperheads, the Wooden Bat Summer League down there in Athens. Yep. I interned with the Columbus Dispatch between my junior and senior year. And just with all those experiences, I kind of just, as I was looking towards graduating, I didn't really know what was next. I don't think newspaper was necessarily maybe the most prudent choice at the time, looking at the future, but I was still interested in writing. But so when I was about to graduate, I didn't have a job lined up. I didn't know exactly what I was doing, but the athletic director at the University of Arkansas, Jeff Long, his niece was a next door neighbor of ours, of mine growing up. And so they just happened, he was the athletic director down at Arkansas, and they happened to have a kind of a new department starting called New Media. So this was 2010, and New Media was like building, it was the website. It was video for the website. Social media was really just starting to come on. I mean, it had been around, but obviously for a few years, but really like Twitter and Facebook were the two primary ones, and universities and organizations were still trying to figure out exactly what it was. And so it wasn't a ton of what it is today. Twitter was used as kind of a way to live blog games, and there wasn't a lot of content produced to post natively on social media. It's hard to imagine that now, but it was a place to put links to drive traffic back to the website. And so anyway, I kind of picked up my first camera there in grad school down at the University of Arkansas and learned how to do that. And then after I graduated, they kept me on full time. And right around that time is when the SEC network launched. And so all of the SEC schools were given an opportunity to grow. And so they built Arkansas built an $8 million studio with 2.5 control rooms. And so I got into some live production as well, doing, producing, directing, replay, graphics, shooting, all that stuff. And then kind of towards the end at Arkansas, I did a lot of video board content and started really dabbling in social media content and recruiting content. And then at that time, Ohio State was hiring. I had this new position with the football program, and it was obviously a no-brainer. I loved my time at Arkansas, but it was a no-brainer to come home and pursue that. And luckily, I was able to get to Ohio State. And my role at Ohio State, while it stayed pretty much the same title-wise, the job descriptions and kind of what our goal was every year really changed every year over those 5 years.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, you get into technology. Like I always say, just like find like an emerging technology. Like when my kids grow up, I just want them to find like an emerging technology. And as you said, like Twitter started out as just redirecting traffic to people's websites and articles. And now look at it. It's still a source for real-time news, but it's about content in real time. Yeah. And so you see the evolution of Twitter from, I think the first time I maybe started using it was like, I don't know, 2009, something like that. Just the evolution now and talk about your field. I mean, it's just crazy to hear how like New Media, which sounds like it's pretty old school based on what they had you doing to start at Arkansas and how that's evolved. It's really incredible. So you got to Ohio State. in what I think it was 2016.
Yep,
right around there.
Spring of 16. Spring game actually was my first kind of official day. So
okay, cool. Yeah, so almost basically 5 years, 5 years almost on the dot, pretty much. Yeah, and you know, so you got to Ohio State. You've been there 5 years. You've seen multiple bowl wins, playoff appearances. Went to a national championship. You worked for 2 different coaches. Incredible time there. So I think Ohio State fans would sit there and say, kid from Ohio, working for Ohio State at, we could call it still the pinnacle of Ohio State football, I think. The golden era of Ohio State football, even though there's been a few of those, but I'd say from the time Jim Tressel got the job till now, it would probably be, it's incredible what they've done. Why would you leave? That's the question I think a lot of people are asking. And it wasn't just you. I know there was a couple other departures this year on more the graphic design side. And I know Sammy Silverman personally, he left a couple years ago as well. I think people are always like, why would someone leave that job? That sounds like the dream job. Like, you get to be on the sidelines for Ohio State football. You get to be in the locker room, in the Woody every single day. So tell us a little bit, we'll take a peek behind the curtain, but like, tell us what went into your decision to leave the program and pursue this opportunity at WME.
Yeah, it was really hard for me personally. You know, this is, you know, my dream job in a lot of ways, working at Ohio State. You know, and the initial thing that everybody sees is obviously the brand in Ohio State, and I grew up in Columbus and grew up an Ohio State fan. And so there's that just on the surface level of just working for that program. But just as I got to meet the people, and really got really thrown into the culture, first under Coach Meyer, and then got to watch it evolve under Coach Day. That was the hardest part, is leaving the people, leaving the student athletes who you were able to build relationships with. There's obviously something to say about just going through a whole season, from, you know, beginning of February, that first workout, all the way through to hopefully playing, you know, midway through January, and going through seeing that whole process through. And really those first few years, that was the coolest part, was just being there, and getting to experience it. But as I grew, you know, and when, you know, year after year got to experience more stuff, it was more about, the most exciting part was seeing how not only I, but my department could really influence what happened on the field in a variety of ways. Obviously through recruiting, you know, at the beginning, right when I got there, we were able to, you know, my job was to make cool content, and to make Ohio State look good, and kind of open the door to get recruits to want to visit and want to be a part of it. And towards the end, it was, you know, meeting with every single recruit that came through the building and talked about how we can help build their personal platform, build their personal brand, help them evolve, teach them how to use social media, and eventually prepare them for what name, image, likeness would provide. But also just teaching them how to use, just how to build their network, build their social media presence, so that people can know who they are, not just as football players. And so I say all of that because those are all the things that I love, and that was the hardest part to leave. But really, it was kind of twofold, my decision. My wife and I, you know, we talk at the end of every year and just kind of evaluate, you know, from August to December, I'm at the Woody, you know, every day of the week, many times for, you know, 12 to 15 hours sometimes. And that's a grind. There's obviously recruiting in the off season. And so for us, it was, every year was kind of like, is it time to look at what else is out there? And occasionally we would, but really it was, the opportunities at Ohio State were great. And then eventually it just gets to the point where, you know, you really look and say, what's best for kind of me personally. And you know, it was not about, there's nothing at Ohio State that like forced me out or made me want to leave. It was more of what the opportunity was on the other side. And it was a chance to work remotely, work from home. I'll still be here in Columbus, and do some traveling, maybe get a little more balance, you know, being able to be home a little bit more, and you know, do all the things that we all have to do, mow the lawn, and all the things that I never had time to do. So that was the personal side, you know, be there for my wife, and my other, family members and friends. And then the other part was professional growth. I'd been in college athletics for 10 years. And I could have stayed at Ohio State and still grown. There's a ton of opportunities at Ohio State and in college athletics, obviously now with name, image, and likeness, and just all kinds of things. But for me, it was kind of looking at what could be next. What experiences haven't I got? And this opportunity just kind of came, and really, there's no perfect opportunities out there, but this one felt like the right move for me and my family to make. And so far I've really enjoyed it, really learned a lot. And definitely looking forward to what's next, what this position holds. But I'm also, there's definitely going to be that time where you're missing being a part of one program and helping them grow.
Yeah, for sure. There's always going to be grass is greener a little bit on the other side. I definitely know that from my professional career. So, but it seems like you got a great thing, and people don't know how many hours you guys put in. And that's, it's not something to pity. Like that's what you chose. You're doing something you're passionate about. These coaches that are doing this, they're doing something they're passionate about, and they're picking a life that they know is going to be a lot of commitment to their job. But, that doesn't, I guess what I'm saying is yes, that's hard, but it also had to be the right opportunity for you to leave. And it seems you can't really get much higher on the college level. Like if you're at Arkansas, solid program, SEC, but there's Alabama, there's Ohio State, there's Clemson. Like you can almost get the peak. Like you don't really get much higher than Ohio State. So yes, I'm sure you could have grown within Ohio State, but it seems like you found a new challenge, which is definitely going to help you grow. And who knows, maybe you'll be back one day, but we're happy for you. And I guess, I just want to share with everyone, like, I know day to day in that job was different every single day, like depending on if you were talking to a recruit versus game day versus fall camp. But just, you mentioned 7 days a week, 12 to 15 hours during the season. Just take us through like what a general day for practice or a game day would be like for you.
Yeah, it really depends on time of year. That was really a part that I loved. Every time of year, you knew what was coming. And so from a content standpoint, as a content creator, we didn't have to be that creative because there was something going on all the time. And so just from like covering what the team was doing, with the access and the trust we had and the relationships we had built with coaches and players, like there was a constant flow of content. And so that was really good. So, as far as, in season, starting in fall camp, we're there probably, 7 a.m. to whenever practice is over. We would practice in the mornings in fall camp, and then there would be a walkthrough in the evening and then dinner. So 6 or 7, throughout August, pretty much every day. The schedule would change, in August you have a couple days off, but there's also, there's always something to do. So we were there constantly. And then once you get into the actual flow of the season, play on Saturday, we would obviously shoot the game, whether it's home or away. I actually, this is kind of different than I think a lot of places. We actually, as soon as the game was over on a Saturday, I kind of let everybody go. Like we would post some raw content, get some photos out. But my philosophy was kind of, one, there are a million games going on Saturdays. Let's cover the game as best we can while we're there. Get live content out, put out some of the best locker room stuff, maybe a quick highlight, some photos after the game, graphic recaps. But let's not stay here till 2 a.m. and offload all of our clips and do all that. I want to give everybody a chance to go home and enjoy the evening. I was a big fan of those noon kickoffs, so I could get home and watch some football and get some pizza and just hang out that evening. But then Sunday, really that was me and my staff's time to go through all of our footage from the day before. We had a team, we always have a team meeting and then practice Sunday night. And so we're there till probably at least 7 or 8 or 9, depending on what's going on. Monday, the players have off. So Monday in season, that's kind of our grind day. All of our footage should be offloaded. So that's when I'm starting to look at concepts for the trailer for that week, find music and look at all of our footage that we had, as well as, we produced, a lot of people don't realize this, we produced 4 internal motivational videos that the team would watch, minimum, sometimes 5, every game week. So certain positions, There's a big video that the team watches before, and those things never saw the light of day. Those were just for the team. And honestly, that was some of my favorite stuff to make, because to me, that, it's the stuff that, kind of that look behind the curtain that only the team gets to see. And so to get to, that I was making something that only the team could see, we put a lot of effort into that. And so a lot of time and effort went into that, starting on Mondays. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is kind of the same, similar schedule. Tuesdays was kind of a grind, that was there 7 a.m., there till 7, 8 or 9 at night. And then Wednesday and Thursday, we'd probably try to get out of there after practice around 7:30. Thursday was family night. So that was kind of, if you can get everything done, that was always the goal, was to get all the videos done so that I could get out of there by about 5 or 6 on Thursdays. And then if not, you were there trying to finish stuff as long as it took to finish it. Friday, any last minute stuff, a lot of those motivational videos we'd play, go out, shoot best Fridays in football, and either go hop on a plane to travel or go over to the golf course and eat dinner. And then leave the team around 6:30 to kind of have Friday night on our own and get ready for Saturday. So that was really our flow during the week of a game week. All throughout the year, like during spring ball, you got spring practice. During winter, you got winter workouts. In a normal year, month of May, all the coaches are on the road. And so it's a little calmer as far as there's not people running in and out of your office. You kind of are building your own content and just kind of running on your own schedule. So, and then I will miss we had probably a 3-week break in July, right before fall camp every year, that all the coaches and staff, except for the weight room staff, those guys are always working. But for the most part, a lot of us got to enjoy about 3 weeks vacation to go completely clear your mind and get ready for the season.
Those were probably 3 great weeks. And I've never heard someone describe a job that I both envy and also never want to touch with a 40-foot pole in my life. But no, that was an awesome peek behind the curtain. I want to ask you 2 things before we kind of wrap up with a couple sentimental questions, I guess. But you worked for Urban Meyer 2016, 2017, 2018. You worked for Ryan Day the last couple years. Tell us a little bit. I know technically not direct report to them, but obviously a lot of exposure in a lot of ways. And I know those guys really appreciate the work that you and your team and a lot of the other creative and recruiting staff do. But tell us the main difference from your perspective in working for Urban Meyer versus working for Ryan Day.
I mean, well, first of all, like I owe so much to both of those coaches, just bringing me in and giving me the trust to do what we did, and it wasn't only seeing the value in what we did. That was a big part of it, and I'll forever be grateful for that. But both of them really treated me and my family just like they do with everybody else on staff, like family. And we're working a lot of hours and all that stuff, but it really never felt like it never felt like that, because they made it a place that you wanted to be. And both have very different personalities, but also both of them have very similar personalities in a lot of way. And both of them are ultra competitive, hate to lose, want to put in all work necessary to make sure that everybody is performing at the elite standard. You always hear Coach Meyer say elite, and Coach Day is the same. They know the expectation of Ohio State, and there's no excuse to not live up to that. That's always the goal. It has been really fun to see just kind of how the culture evolved from Coach Meyer to Coach Day. That first year, a big part of what my job too was helping, a lot of what those motivational videos was building the internal culture of Ohio State. And, a coach can say, 4 to 6, A to B, relentless effort, competitive excellence, power of the unit, brotherhood of trust, all that stuff over and over again. But if they can't visualize it, if they can't feel it, it can only go so far. And so I took a lot of pride in helping build that culture. And so I think Coach Day's first year, I saw it more, it was an extension of what the culture was before. And then over the last year, 2 years, you've really seen him put his own stamp on it. Obviously the culture of fight that we were able to build, but really, his focus on building the full student athlete, focus on mental health, empowering not only the student athlete, but the staff, and also just making everyone feel like they really had a role, like they were welcome. Coach Day is extremely down to earth, very easy to talk to, very easy to have a conversation with. And so in a lot of ways, Coach Meyer was too, but I think in a lot of ways, Coach Meyer had built, he knew exactly what he wanted, and he built that, and it had worked for a long time. And so he always was open to new ideas and how can we make the program better. But I think the challenge was there's a formula that works. How do I build something that kind of can enhance that formula and build it going forward? And really that's what Coach Days is too. But I think, I would just say on a day-to-day basis, I'm probably having more dialogue with Coach Day and providing, real input and being able to bring new ideas to the table. And really Coach Meyer was like that too, but I think both of them were, Coach Meyer is probably just a little more of an intense of a person. I think, he's a thinker, he's a motivator. And of course Coach Day is too. But I think I don't know the right word if there is a word to describe the difference, but I think both ultra competitive, both love to motivate, but the way in which they go about it just is a little different. And I've learned so much from both of them.
That's what I was going to say, just from my knowledge, is the way they motivate is different. I think, to your point, a lot of their values and the way they run a program, obviously Coach Day learned from Coach Meyer and things like that. I don't want to say Day's more of a player's coach, but it's that whole tough love thing. I think, Coach Meyer always wanted to make people uncomfortable, I guess, comfortable with being uncomfortable to some extent, and knowing how that kind of pushes you a little bit, kind of sink or swim to some extent. And Coach Day, I think, is a little bit more personable in his approach, but he's still going to be tough on you when he needs to be. So that's the best way it was described to me, I think, by someone. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly accurate. And that's not to say, like, the players loved Coach Meyer too.
Right.
Like, they really did. And they respected the heck out of him and knew that. And not only because they knew he could get them to where they wanted to be, but because they knew that he really did care about them, and Coach Day, Coach Day on the flip side, there is still, get comfortable being uncomfortable. But yeah, it's just, they're two different personalities in some ways, but it's also, you can see like that ultra competitive side, like that's still there. And there's no day where you're like, I can't be, the expectation is still to be the best. And
right.
So it was really, really fun to get to experience that for 5 years.
Yeah, for sure. Second to last thing, I guess, here would be name, image, likeness. You brought it up before. What's, from your perspective, how does this change college football?
Well, that's obviously yet to be seen. As the state laws come through, and then hopefully get a federal law in place that kind of levels the playing field. I think you're obviously going to see players take advantage of this. You're already seeing them doing it. It's going to be interesting to see how the dynamics. It's going to be hard. It's going to be harder for coaches to build that brotherhood, that true brotherhood culture that I think we really had that. Like, it's not fake. Like, these guys would do anything for everyone else. And like, it takes a long time to build that. And it's real. Like, it goes really deep, and it's hard to explain that for people that aren't around the entire year, seeing it get built from the start. And I think just inherently it's going to be more difficult to build that because money is money. And
because Chase Young's going to get an opportunity that someone else, it becomes a professional locker room to some extent.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. And you can't really hide from it. That's going to be the truth. And guys are going to know, it's not only what guys are earning, guys are going to know what their value is, what, they're going to have a dollar amount attached to their head. And a lot of that is going to be based on social media. A lot of it's going to be based off of external factors as well. But that's for me, like, personally, having like really enjoyed being a part of building cultures, seeing how coaches are able to manage that. How do you not only from, Justin Fields to the freshman, or the incoming long snapper, but also just especially within units. If one defensive end is making, is valued at this, and the other defensive end is valued a lot lower, yet both have similar production on the field, or I don't know. It's just going to be interesting to see that. And you're going to have to really build that culture. To me, I really think that there's just a lot of talk about how much money players can make. And I think at the end of the day, I think the money that most college athletes are going to make even the ones that are getting drafted and going to play in the NFL, the money they're going to have the opportunity to make in college is probably pennies on the dollar of what they were actually making their lifetime so now obviously you'll have your Justin Fields and your superstars that are going to be worth it. We're going to have some guys on our team this year that are going to have opportunities to make six figures, and who knows, even more, if they take advantage of all opportunities. But there's going to be some growing pains too. There are obviously a lot of laws, a lot of rules to be passed. Ohio State just signed on to Open Doors, which is an incredible platform. A lot of other schools are using Influencer, as well as there's other third parties as well. Those relationships are going to continue to grow, but with those relationships and as players continue to make money, they're going to monitor, how much money, there are going to be rules in place. You can't a player's not going to be able to go get paid $1 million to go speak for 5 minutes. That's not a legitimate fee. That's not what they're worth. So they need to go through a year of this and see what actually is that acceptable value. So there's going to be some growing pains with that. And obviously, this goes well beyond the NCAA. The NCAA has its own rules that everyone has to follow, but this is the federal and state government. So I just know from talking to players, though, they want to take advantage. And so it's going to be really, really interesting to see how they balance that. My fear as just a college football fan is, in a lot of ways, sports these days, with the amount of money that players can make on social media and through other opportunities, in a way, the sport is becoming an outlet or a kind of a stepping stone to other opportunities. Whereas in the past, the sport was the opportunity, especially when we talk about football. Nothing's guaranteed in football. The average lifespan is 2 or 3 years in the NFL. What are you going to do after that? So I think it'll be interesting to see, do players still want to play football and see that as their career and put everything into that? Or is football just a thing that they're just trying to use to get to the next step? And that's going to be a challenge, I think, that coaches have to face.
For sure. Unique perspective. For me, my biggest fear is just the whole, and Ohio State's positioned well, but the whole, basically this becoming a way for boosters to pay student athletes to come to their school. And to your point, there will be rules and regulations in place, but I think those first few years where they're figuring everything out, there could be some things that fall through the cracks where there's, people who own certain businesses that happen to be very wealthy alumni of certain schools. And, hey, Johnny, come here. You could get this deal endorsing our, my car dealership, and you're going to get paid a lot of money to do it, right? Are you going to get that at Auburn? Are you going to get that well, maybe they'll get it at Auburn, but are you going to get that at Mississippi State? That's my fear. But I think the cool thing about it is it's going to give people like you in your old job really cool opportunities, recruiting collateral, being able to help these guys build their brand in a way that they never have before. There's just so much you guys are going to be able to do, or your former team's going to be able to do to help these kids out in this new NIL world is going to be really interesting. So I'm excited to see what's ahead, because I'm someone who's been a fan of, don't pay them a salary, don't pay college athletes a salary, but I think that they should be able to profit off their, if they want to go to the mall and sign autographs for a few hours, I think that they should be able to get paid for that. So I think that's what this rule intends it to be. So I'm happy for the student athletes for that. And I'm excited to see how how it makes the world a little crazier when it comes to recruiting and to your point, managing a locker room over the next, handful of years while they get it right. So before we let you go, what's that?
I was just going to say, I do think Ohio State is very well prepared. I think Gene being on that committee, Gene has been an advocate for this for a long time, to giving, student athletes opportunities, and Coach Day has been an advocate as well. And I think they have just from, watching the process grow for the last 2 years, knowing this gigantic monster was coming, Ohio State's like really prepared to do this the right way. And really like this partnership with Open Doors they did, just the opportunity that Columbus and Ohio State brand provide. Like I just saw last month, they come out month to month with who has the highest engagement in college football. In May, Ohio State was second by just a few thousand, and we didn't even have a creative staff for half the time. So the power of Ohio State, along with the preparation that Gene and Coach Day and everybody at Ohio State has been doing, I think you're really going to see them thrive throughout this kind of change in the way college athletics is.
Yeah, no surprise there. That's like the least shocking thing I've heard. I know between Gene and Coach Day and Mark Pantoni, I mean, they're going to be on top of it. So we'll let you go. But last thing, real quick, thing you'll miss the most and thing you'll miss the least about leaving, about your job at Ohio State.
The thing I'll miss the most is just the relationships. As every year when we looked at kind of like, is this time to go? My one thing was, the one thing I'll regret is not winning a national championship. I really wanted that. We did get to go to one, and it was a little weird because it was obviously last year in the midst of that crazy year. But, at the same time, there were like that last year was difficult. We obviously, the last 3 years have been difficult for a variety of reasons. 2018, obviously had the struggles in the off season, and then we came back and bounced back, and obviously had a loss and bounced back and still had a successful season. And then to kind of go through the changing of the guard and watch Coach Meyer leave, and 2019 was a struggle in its own right. Going undefeated is not easy, and having every week knowing that everything you do is kind of on the line, and then to feel that joy of going undefeated, winning the Big Ten championship, going to the playoffs, and then having it end like that. That was tough. Like that weighed on us for a long, long time. We put everyone in the program put a lot into that 2019 season, and that was really tough. And then obviously I don't need to talk about 2020, but at the same time, going through that year at 2020, actually getting to work from home there for a few months and seeing what kind of life was outside of the same routine that I'd been living. It's kind of the same thing that I'll miss is the same thing that I'm kind of, looking forward to leaving behind a little bit is, it's hard to be creative when you're living the same cycle again and again and again. And I made however many trailers over 5 years, and I made however many spring football game highlights over however many years. And eventually, as much as I loved that process every year, looking back, I got to experience, 4 wins over the team up north and a national championship and 3 playoff games. And went to every bowl game, I think, except for the Peach Bowl during my time. Got to travel all over, be a part of some crazy victories, meet some great, players, get to see guys grow. There really wasn't much left for me personally to do it. Win the national championship was only one, but at the end of the day, I'm the creative video guy. So I don't know how much impact I have over that one game. So for me, that was kind of it. I kind of looked back and said, you know what, we left a good mark. We did a lot. I'm going to miss that, but I'm also, looking forward to kind of seeing what a new routine might bring.
For sure, man. Well, just got to say, big fan of your work. I thought you did an amazing job at Ohio State during your 5 years, and really excited to see what's ahead for you. So just want to wish you the best of luck. Thank you for coming on the show. It was awesome to kind of hear you share your stories and give everyone a little peek behind the curtain of Ohio State football. So thanks again. Best of luck. And we'll definitely be sure to look at your work moving forward.
Absolutely. Appreciate you having me, and always go Bucks, man.
This episode of Around the Oval was brought to you by Todd Pennington with Renovation Mortgage. If you've been thinking about refinancing or buying a house, check out our sponsor, Todd Pennington with Renovation Mortgage. They offer low rates for refinancing and home purchase loans, including first-time home buyer programs, down payment assistance, and cash-out home equity loans. Check out revolutionmortgage.com/tpennington.